right, for note 6-10, we are going to do a binomial times a binomial or a trinomial. So remember, binomial means 2, and we're going to be multiplying by 2 or 3 things today. They teach something that they call FOIL. And so in order to multiply binomials, you distribute each term to the first binomial in each term in the other binomial. Then you combine the terms. This order of distributing is frequently referred to as the FOIL method. I don't really particularly call it FOIL. I call it double distribute. So like I'm going to take A and I'm going to multiply it by this one and by this one. And then after I do that, I'm going to take B and I'm going to multiply it by this one and then by this one, which is why they call it FOIL, because you're going to multiply your first 2 terms, you're going to multiply your outside 2 terms, you're going to multiply your inside 2 terms, and you're going to multiply your last. I call it double distribute. Double distribute and FOIL mean the exact same thing. So now I'm going to do these 2 examples with you. We're going to do odds together, and then you have to do, we're going to do evens together, and then you're going to do the odds. Okay, so what you're going to do is apply the rule we were doing yesterday, and you're going to take x times x, which is x squared, and then x times 4, which is 4x. So you add your exponents, keep your coefficient, put the exponent on it. Once you've done that, you're not using this x anymore. Now you distribute the 2. We're going to do 2 times x, which is 2x, and 2 times 4, which is 8. Since these both have x's in the middle, they can combine. So I write this in standard form. The x squared is the biggest. X goes first. 4 plus 2 becomes 6, and I keep x, and then I bring down plus 8. That's the final answer. You're done. Okay. So for example 2, slight small change. You have a coefficient now. So we're going to do 2x times x. So I keep that coefficient, and then x and x make x squared. And then 2x minus 5, that gives me 2 times negative 5 is negative 10, and then I keep the x. I don't need to use the 2x anymore, so now I move to the 1. So 1 times x is 1x, and 1 times negative 5 is negative 5. Now I just combine those x's again. I start with my highest, which is the x squared, and it's by itself, so I just bring it down. Negative 10x plus 1x is a negative 9x, and then I bring down minus 5. Okay, so now just where it says you try, we're going to do the evens together, and then I'm going to have you completely try the odds on your own. Some of y'all are going to breeze through this. Some of y'all may need to stay with me the whole time. So k times k, that would be k squared. I don't have a coefficient. And then k times 5, I write the coefficient first and keep the k. Don't need the k anymore. Negative 4 times k would be a negative 4k because you write the coefficient first. And then negative 4 times 5 is a negative 20. I combine my k's, so I'm going to keep the k squared. A 5 plus a negative 4 becomes a positive 1k. And then I bring down minus 20. There's my final answer. For number 4, an x times an x, there's no coefficient, so this would be an x squared. And then an x times a negative 2, I write that negative 2 first and then keep x. Not doing x anymore, moving to 2. 2 times x is a 2x, and then 2 times negative 4 is a negative 4. My x's will combine. I bring down that x squared. A negative 2x and a positive 2x cancel each other. So I just bring down the minus 4, and that's my final answer. For number 6, I have n times 5n, so I keep that coefficient of 5, and n make n squared. And then n times negative 4, I keep that coefficient of negative 4, and I put the n on the end. I'm not doing n anymore, so now I do negative 1 times 5n, and I keep that, gives me negative 5 when I multiply my coefficients, and then I keep the n. And then negative 1 times negative 4 gives me a positive 4. I can combine my n's, so I'm going to keep the 5n squared. A negative 4 and a negative 5 make a negative 9n when I add, and I bring down that plus 4. For number 8, I'm going to do 6 times 2, which gives me 12, and then a and a make a squared. 6 times 3, which gives me 18, and then I just have to keep that a. I'm done with the 6a, so 2 times 2 gives me 4, and I keep the a, and then 2 times 3 gives me 6. I'm going to add my a's, so I keep the 12a squared. 18 plus 4 becomes 22a, and I keep the plus 6. For number 10, I'm going to do 3 times 3, which gives me 9, and a W make W squared. 3 times -1 gives me -3, and then I just keep W. I'm done with 3W, so I move to 1. 1 times 3 gives me a +3, and then I keep W, and 1 times -1 gives me a -1. The W's will combine, so I'm going to keep the 9W squared. A 3 plus a 3 cancels each other, so I just bring down the -1. Okay, I'm going to flip to the back. Y'all have to do those odds. Okay, on the back, we have now, we're going to go up to 2 letters now. So a 2 times a 1 gives me 2, and A make A squared. A 2 times a -4 makes -8, and I have an A, so I keep it, and then I have a B, so I keep it. And they just go together. Done with the 2A, moving to 5. A 5 times a 1 is 5. I keep the A, and I keep the B. We don't write B first, because A always comes before B in the alphabet. And then I do 5 times -4, which gives me -20. And I have a B and a B in this piece, so that would give me B squared when I add them. Now the 2 pieces that can combine are those ABs, so I'm going to keep my 2A squared. -8 plus 5 becomes -3, and then I just keep AB, and I bring down -20 B squared. There's my final answer. For 14, we're going to do 4 times 7, which is 28. And then if I have a C and a C, 1 plus 1 gives me C squared. Then I do 4 times -2, which gives me -8. I have 1 C in this piece and none over here, so that gives me C. And then I have a D over here, but none over here, so D. Okay, I'm done with 4C, so now I move to D. 1 times 7 is 7. I don't have a D over in this piece, but there's a C, so I have to write it alphabetically, CD. And then 1 times -2 gives me -2, and I have 1, 2 D's, because they don't have exponents, so D squared. The CDs can combine, so I'm going to keep 28C squared. -8 plus 7 is a -1, and that's CD, and I do -2 D squared. That would be my final answer. I am done with that problem. Okay, for 16, which is also like 15, when it has a squared on the outside, this is not the power rule that we've already learned because there's a minus sign in here. You can only do the power rule on a monomial. This is a binomial. So what you're going to do is you're actually going to scratch through that squared and just rewrite P minus 7. So we just have it twice. Now you're going to do P times P, which is P squared because 1 plus 1. And then P times -7 is -7P. I'm done with P, so I move to -7. -7 times P is -7P, and -7 times -7 is positive 49. My P's can now combine, so I keep P squared. -7 and -7 make -14, and I keep P, and then I do plus 49. That's in standard form. That's my final answer. Okay, for 18, again, you have that squared. We're going to scratch the squared, and we're going to write A plus 3B again. And now we just follow the rules from above. So A times A is A squared. A times 3B, this would give me a positive. I keep that 3, and then I write my letters alphabetical, AB. I'm done with A, so I move to 3B. So 3B times A, I keep that coefficient of 3, and then I write my letters alphabetical, AB. And then 3 times 3 gives me 9, and if I have a B and a B, 1 plus 1 gives me B squared. I can now combine the ABs, so I keep A squared. 3 plus 3 gives me 6, and I keep AB. And then I bring down plus 9B squared. That's written in standard form, and that's my final answer. Okay, for the next little section, you have Bino times Trino. Super easy. Nothing's changing, just more numbers. Okay, we're going to do 20 and 22, and make sure you write in standard form. So you actually have to pay attention to the standard form on this one. We're going to do K times K squared. So 1 plus 2 gives me K to the third. And then K times negative K, I have to keep that negative sign, and 1 plus 1 gives me K squared. And then I do k times -8, so I keep the coefficient of -8 and I just put the k on the end. So I just had to multiply it by 3 things. I'm done with the k, so I move to -5. -5 times k squared is -5, keep that coefficient, and then just write the k squared because it doesn't go away. And then -5 times -k, a negative times a negative will be a +5. I got to keep that coefficient, and then I keep that k also. And then -5 times -8 is a +40. Okay, so I'm going to look for my terms that I have that are similar, and I have a k to the third, so I start with that one, so k to the third. I'm not going to use that one anymore because there's no more. And then I move to k squared, so a -1 and a -5 add to give me -6, and I keep k squared. I'm done with the k squareds. So then I move to the -8 and that +5, which gives me a -3k. Done with those two pieces, and I bring down the +40. Hold on, guys, give me a second. Okay, back at it. Sorry. So now for 20, this is my final answer. It's in standard form. I'm done. Okay, for 22, we're going to do the exact same thing. We're going to do 2 times 4, which gives me 8, and then a v and a v2. So 1 plus 2 gives me v to the third. 2 times -3 gives me -6, and 1 plus 1 gives me v squared. And 2 times -6 gives me -12, and 1 plus 0 gives me v. I'm done with the 2v, so now I move to 3. 3 times 4 gives me a +12, and I have to just keep the v squared because there's no v's over here. 3 times -3 gives me -9, and I just keep that v because, again, there's no v's over here. And then 3 times -6 gives me -18. There's no v's in either piece, so I just don't write it. So now going in standard form, starting with the biggest piece, we're going to start with a third. There's no more thirds, so I bring down 8v to the third, and I don't use that piece anymore. Then I move to the squareds. I have a -6 and a +6. So when I add those, that gives me a -6 and a +12. So when I add them, they give me a +6v squared. Don't need that piece anymore, don't need that piece anymore. Then I have a -12v and a -9v. So when you add those together, that gives you -21, and you keep v. Don't need that piece, don't need that piece. Well, the only piece left over now is the -18, so here is my final answer for that problem. Now, I'm going to do 23 with you, and then you have to do the rest of the odds. Okay, so this one's just like the one from yesterday where you have to find the area. So the first thing we're going to do is find the area of the big. We're going to do 9x minus 2, and we're going to multiply it by 2x plus 7, because that's the length and the width of the big. And then we're going to subtract it by 3x times x plus 12. That's the length and the width of the small. We're going to do one at a time and get to a final answer and then move to the other one. So 9 times 2 gives me 18, and x make x squared. 9 times 7 gives me 63, and I keep the x. Done with the 9x. Moving to -2. -2 times 2 gives me -4, and I keep that x. And -2 times 7 gives me -14. So now when I combine these, I keep my 18x squared because there's no other x squareds. 63 and -4 come together to make a positive 59x, and I keep -14. Okay, this is one whole piece. It's still stuck together. I'm putting it in parentheses. Now the other side, I'm going to do 3 times x. That gives me a 3x squared. And 3 times 12, that gives me a positive 36, and then I have to keep the x. These two pieces can't combine, so I'm just going to rewrite them in parentheses right here and bring that minus sign down now. Now don't forget, we have to distribute that -1. Okay, so when I distribute -1, this gives me a -3x squared, and this gives me a -36x. The first piece can come down. We haven't done anything with it, and now I'm ready to combine like terms. So I'm going to start with my x squareds. I have a 18 and a -3, which will combine to give me 15x squared. Don't need that piece anymore. Don't need that piece anymore. I have a 59x and a -36x. So whenever I combine those, So whenever I combine those, 59 plus -36 will give me a positive 23, and then keep x. And I don't need that piece anymore. I don't need that piece anymore. And the only thing I have left is that minus 14. So that would be my final answer. All right, so finishing up these notes, and if you have questions, stop and ask.